Seems like everything's moving smoothly. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Pat Outdoors. Hope you had a great week. Today we are back working on the Razor MX500 snow bike project. But before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to Jason Kreider. You can check him out on YouTube. I think his name is Flex Emoto or MLI Custom on Instagram. He actually sent me some photos of his bike and I thought it looked sick. That's actually what inspired me to do this CRF 50 plastics or body kit on my MX500, and I absolutely love the way it looks. I think you should give this thing a try. So check out his page when you get a chance. But today we are gonna be getting this thing back running. We're gonna be converting it to 48 volts using parts that I already have in the garage. In case you're not familiar with this project or my channel, this is an MX500 that I got off Craigslist a couple months ago. Not running, and I'm just trying to bring it back to life, and we're actually in the middle of converting it into a snow bike. I recently replaced all the plastics with CRF 50 Honda body kit, so that's why it's got this refreshed look. I also reupholstered the seat with some marine vinyl, so it's starting to look really good. But today we're actually going to be taking this bike apart and ripping out all the worn out parts, like this blown out rear shock, this tired motor, all the dead batteries, and we're going to be replacing those with the newer parts that actually came on my MX650 that I got brand new a couple months ago. If you already follow this channel, you might already know that I get bored kind of easily and I'm always looking for more speed. So while we have this thing apart, we're going to be installing the Fast Scooters Overvolt kit along with 4 fresh SLA batteries that came off my original 650 build, which should be good. Those are only like 5 or 6 months old. Also going to be putting on the 13 tooth sprocket just to get a little bit more speed out of it. Even though this thing's a snow bike and it's not really going to need that much speed or power, I just can't have a bike that doesn't go at least 25 miles an hour. And I already have all the parts laying around, so why not? So let's get started. Here it is, all stripped out. Throw away all the garbage that was in there to make room for some new goodies going in. Fresh start. Here's a new replacement shock that we replaced the blown one with. It's just a stock one that came off my 650. I probably rode on this thing twice since I put a D&M shock on that one immediately. I put it on the top hole. Technically, this should lower the rear of the bike maybe a 1/4 inch or so. It just pulls the swing arm up just a little bit versus the bottom hole, which I prefer because the front is going to drop a little bit with the snow ski installed on this bike. Here's the replacement motor, also came off my 650, very little wear. I probably rode on this thing for a month or so before I swapped it to a brushless setup. 13 tooth sprocket installed. This old tired chain just has to get lubed up right now. I'm gonna freshen it up with some ceramic wet chain lube. Next thing we're going to be doing here is replacing all of these inline 30 amp fuses with some 35 amp fuses. Not necessary, but I'm just trying to get the most power delivery potential out of these SLA batteries. And then I'm gonna mount the fourth battery up here, just like how I did my original one a couple months ago, without cutting this upper frame. And then we're gonna finish wiring every battery in the series. And then we're gonna mount the Fast Scooters controller on and start wiring it up. So here's how we're looking so far. All 4 batteries are wired up in a series. All 4 inline fuses have been replaced with 35 amp. The 4th battery is nice and secure on there. It's got a 1/2 inch thick dense foam pad at the bottom just to protect the battery at the bottom. And it's tied in place with these 2 humongous zip ties. And then I just wanted to make sure those weren't gonna shift around, so I added some Gorilla Tape on top of that. I can probably pick up this bike with that battery. It's nice and secure on there. Here's how the Fast Scooters controller is mounted. Just a 1 bolt with a washer, not going anywhere. Kind of like how that's positioned anyway, so there's more room for the wiring on this side. So the wiring for these controllers are very simple. It's just a blue and yellow wire. This 1 plug goes to the motor. This 5-wire plug goes to the throttle. And then the power source right here, you just steal the connector from the side cover and you power it directly from the battery. So you completely bypass the on-off switch. I know some people had questions on my earlier videos like 5 months ago when I first did this. But you completely bypass the on-off switch since it's going to be turned on with a key through the throttle wiring. And then this plug right here just goes to the charge port on the side cover. Chain's looking nice and refreshed after the loops worked its way into the chain. So it looks like it's brought back to life. One thing I didn't think about was the throttle. I forgot that I repinned the one that came with this one and I used it on my street bike. So I got a replacement universal one. And the 5 wires look completely different. So I gotta look at some wiring diagrams to figure out how to repin it to work with this. Shouldn't be difficult. There are also these 4 plugs that I wire tied and set aside since I'm not gonna be using them. The 2 big ones are just the brake safety switch, and the other 2 are just for lighting, like brake lights and tail lights. Since I'm not hooking anything up like that on this bike, I'm just gonna set those aside. For the meantime, while I'm reviewing some wiring diagrams, I'm gonna hook up the charge port onto this so I can have the batteries charge up for the next few hours, and then we're gonna come back and wire up the throttle and turn this thing on. The charger that I'm using for this bike is also by Fast Scooters. You need this if you're gonna be using 4 SLA batteries. It charges it up to 55 volts. The plug that it uses is the same one as the original, just a 3-pin one that goes on the side cover. I'm actually gonna hook up one of my spares temporarily while we let this thing charge and review some wiring. The throttle wiring is very simple, really. The black, red, and green wires are just the variable throttle control, and then the other 2 wires just complete a circuit when you turn the key on to turn the bike on. It's the same deal with the wires coming from the throttle. Black, red, and green are for variable control, and then the other 2 just complete a circuit. Of course, before you do any sort of wiring, make sure you disconnect the power from the controller so nothing bad happens. Of course, you don't have to do any of this if you have a brand new Fast Scooters kit. The controller that it comes with is direct plug and play. I really like using these style wire connectors. It's almost like a heat shrink tube with a solder in the middle. You just slip the wires in on both sides and heat it up with a heat gun, and eventually the solder would fuse the 2 wires together. You can feel really good about the connection, and then I'm just gonna insulate this with some electrical tape just to clean things up. All right, moment of truth. 52.3 volts. It's got plenty of juice. Seems like everything's moving smoothly. All right guys, we got the MX500 back up and running, this time with the Fast Scooters Overvolt kit installed and a 13-tooth sprocket along with a fresh set of batteries. On the next video, we're gonna be putting the plastics back on. I'm gonna show you what you have to trim on the side covers to fit the 4th battery. And then we're gonna take this bike out for its one last ride before we install the snow gear. If you enjoyed today's video or found it helpful in any way, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you like this kind of content, want to keep up with some of my bike projects or any of my other builds, consider subscribing to this channel. But this is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching.